Venezuela commemorates with various activities the 33 years of the civic-military rebellion against the government of Carlos Andrés Pérez. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, M23 rebel movement declared a unilateral ceasefire in the city of Goma due to the current humanitarian crisis in the African country. And a Palestinian combatant from the resistance movement hit to death 2 Israeli soldiers and injured 6 others in response to the genocidal offensive mounted by Zionist forces on the northern occupied West Bank. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news, so stay with us. Venezuela commemorates the 33 years of the civic-military rebellion against the government of Carlos Andrés Pérez, action that was led by Commander Hugo Chávez Frías on February 4, 1992. President Nicolás Maduro took part in the commemoration act, addressing the march that had gathered in the capital, Caracas. Joined by First Commander Cilia Flores and by Minister of the Interior, Peace and Justice Diosdado Cabello, the president highlighted that Commander Chávez's February 4th rebellion was the rebirth of the liberating projects of a long line of leaders and generations in the region. In this context, he also stressed that February 4th marked an awakening of the Venezuelan and a starting point for the process that is still alive today. Earlier in the day, addressing the commemoration of the February 4th civic-military rebellion against Carlos Andrés Pérez dictatorship in Venezuela, Ministers of Interior, Justice and Peace Diosdado Cabello stressed the need to honor Commander Chávez's deed and the changes it brought to the nation.
Honor to whom honor is owed. Certainly, our country changed after that February 4th, and that humble but firm man emerged, who was able in 1 minute to send a message of hope for the future to the people. That a battle had been lost, but that the war was just beginning.
Likewise, the Venezuelan minister recalled that the military forces, together with Chávez, confronted the empire amid the economic crisis which ravaged the country by that time.
We rose up against those who governed here, that is to say, we rose up against imperialism, because in the end it was the imperialism who governed here, all our natural resources handed over, the country mortgaged, on the way to privatizing all.
The United States and El Salvador announced on Monday the start of a controversial immigration agreement that they called unprecedented. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele on Monday. After their meeting, he said that El Salvador agreed to take in any regular immigrants from the United States and also offered to house dangerous U.S. criminals in its prisons. Bukele affirmed that the new agreement with the U.S. constitutes a unique case. He said that this is a much larger agreement that is unprecedented in the history of relations, not only between the U.S. and El Salvador, but with all Latin America.
The President, in an act of extraordinary friendship to our country, knowing the challenges we face in the U.S., has agreed to the most unprecedented and extraordinary migratory agreement anywhere in the world. First, obviously, he continues with full cooperation on the returning of Salvadorians who find themselves illegally in the United States and welcome them back home. And that's already existing, and that will continue. But second, he has agreed to accept for deportation any illegal alien in the United States who is a criminal from any nationality, be they MS-13 or Tren de Aragua, and house them in his jails. And third, he has offered to house in his jails dangerous American criminals in custody in our country, including those of U.S. citizenship and legal residence. No country's ever made an offer of friendship such as this.
And now we have a short break coming up. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. In Haiti, the number of people fleeing violence grows daily since the beginning of the siege of the Kiev commune by armed groups. The International Organization for Migration reported that 1,669 citizens abandoned their homes in that community due to the attacks since January 27th. According to the organization, more than 1 million citizens are currently internally displaced in the Caribbean country, struggling amidst a worsening humanitarian crisis. The UNOM regretted that minors are bearing the brunt of displacement and represent half of the population in this situation. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the M23 rebel movement declared a unilateral ceasefire in the city of Goma due to the current humanitarian crisis in the African country. In a statement, the M23 armed group emphasized its commitment to safeguard the people and localities under its control. They also exhorted the Southern African Development Community to leave the country since they did not deem important the presence of this organization in the country. The M23 detailed that they do not intend to take the city of Bukavu, while they condemned the intentions of the armed forces to bombard the areas under the control of these armed groups. Meanwhile, citizens called on the Congolese government not to trust the ceasefire, as they say is a strategy to gain strength before continuing on the offensive.
Aujourd'hui, une telle déclaration, ça montre encore leur stratégie.
Today, such a statement still shows their military strategy. At the same time, as they say that the city of Bukavu should not be taken, it is a strategy for them to strengthen themselves with men and ammunition, and at the same time, they are advancing to take the city of Bukavu. Thus, we still ask the authorities not to trust such statements, to focus and to stay alert to neutralize the enemies of the Republic.
I think it's a total distraction, and the Congolese government should not take it into account, because every time the M23 AFC solicits for its sole effect, a while later, we find that it was a way to distract the Congolese government, and sometime later, the M23 AFC reclaims many villages and advances further. That is why I think as the M23 AFC are already in South Kivu soliciting for its sole effect, a few days later, we will be surprised that they have taken Bukavu or Uvira or even other villages in other provinces.
The M23 move comes in response to different reports of the social crisis in the city of Goma due to the violence between armed groups. Health authorities said that hospitals are overburdened with trauma patients. They also warned that they are facing a humanitarian crisis as food and medical supplies are having difficulty reaching the conflict zone. Thousands of people were leaving the Greek island of Santorini by sea and air for a third day on Tuesday as an unprecedented series of earthquakes shook the island. Officials said that some 6,000 people have already left the island, known for its spectacular cliffside views and a dormant volcano. Since last week, the island has been hit by hundreds of tremors. A 4.9 magnitude quake hit early on Tuesday morning amid other smaller tremors. No injuries or damage were reported on Santorini and the neighboring islands of Anafi, Ios and Amorgos, which have also been affected by the seismic activity. Experts say the region has not experienced seismic activity on this scale in recent history and do not know how long it will last. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. A Palestinian combatant from the resistance movement shot to death 2 Israeli soldiers and injured 6 others in response to the genocidal offensive mounted by the Zionist forces on another occupied West Bank. Local media reported the clash broke out on Tuesday morning near the teleSUR checkpoint, eastern Tuba city. Sources detailed that the Palestinian combatant barricaded himself inside a watchtower at the checkpoint to wait for the right time to open fire, in which he was killed. Afterward, Israel authorities ordered the closure of nearby roads and the dispatch of helicopters to transport the injured to hospitals. And in this context, several Middle East governments reject the U.S. president's proposal to relocate Palestinians from Gaza to neighboring countries. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Iran, Egypt and Jordan condemned what they described as an ethnic cleansing plan. In response to Trump's statements, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said that the transfer of Palestinians out of their territory is not the solution and that the establishment of a free Palestinian state recognized throughout the world must be promoted. For his part, Jordan's Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi stated that his country's stance against Trump's plan would remain firm and unwavering. Let's go now to South Korea, where a constitutional court held a briefing as part of the ongoing impeachment trial against President Yoon Suk-yeol. Yoon arrived at the court in a prison truck escorted by guard vehicles after being incarcerated in a detention center near Seoul since officers arrested him in January. The Constitutional Court is currently deliberating on his formal removal or reinstatement, a process that could take up to 180 days. Prosecutors indicated in this context the ousted president on rebellion charges in connection with his imposition of short-lived martial law past December 3rd. And also we are going to, at this hour, to the U.S. President Donald Trump. Let's go to the U.S. reaffirm to barter aid for rare and mineral-rich lands with Ukraine. In this context, on a press briefing before journalists in this Oval Office, the U.S. President ensured that $100 billion investment must warranty the appropriation of minerals and territory of interest. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky had offered his country's mineral resources, which are valued at billions of dollars, to the West. They have been coveted by high-tech industries in the areas of electronics, green energy, medicine and optics. Indeed, Ukraine possesses deposits of 20 elements such as lithium, cobalt, scandium, graphite, tantalum, niobium, among others. And in an exclusive interview for a news multi-platform teleSUR, Raúl Antonio Capote, Cuban journalist of the Granma newspaper, highlighted that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, used the U.S. aid to finance the terrorist projects of the Venezuelan opposition. Let's listen.
Recuerden que Trump en su primer gobierno utilizó la USAID, se financió la USAID.
Remember that during his first administration Trump used the USAID, he funded the USAID, all the things that were done against Venezuela in those years were done with USAID funds. In other words, everything that was prepared against the Maduro government at that time came out of the pockets of the USAID. Now it is uncomfortable for him to use that organization, which is also in tremendous disrepute today, because it has also been linked to extremely corrupt elements of the Venezuelan opposition. USAID was the one that financed the entire Guaido project and everything that happened in those years, and has responsibility in many acts of corruption to which all these lords of the Venezuelan opposition are linked.
The Molina government deported Monday 43 Colombians complying with the anti-immigrant agreement sealed between Panama and the United States. The target of the deal is to arrest and deport migrants crossing over the Darien Gap. Earlier, Colombian President Gustavo Petro had requested to suspend for a while deportation flights to set a humanitarian protocol. Likewise, Petro had proposed to arrange chartered flights for migrants, noting they won't receive them in handcuffs like criminals. However, the Molina administration dismissed Petro's calls. As a result, Panamanian authorities treated the 43 deportees like offenders as they tied their hands up during the flight, though they claimed they were just 7 with criminal records.
During the flight they brought us in. They used some things to tie everyone's hands. If we are going to have continuous deportations due to the international policies that are being adopted, let's request President Petro to create support networks, temporary shelters in national institutions that will allow us to attend these cases.
The Chinese government announced Tuesday that it will impose tariffs of 10 to 100% on certain U.S. products beginning February 10th in response to the 10% tariffs on Chinese goods imposed by President Donald Trump. According to a statement issued by the Chinese Executive Customs Commission, Beijing will apply a 15% tariffs on coal and liquefied natural gas products and a 10% tariffs on crude oil, agricultural machinery, large cars and pickup trucks. The same document adds that in case of imported goods originated in the United States, the corresponding duties will be applied based on the tariff rates in force. Finally, the Chinese government filed a complaint against the United States before the World Trade Organization for violating the rules established by the agency. And with this information, we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.